Today I'd like to talk about financial organizing, and this is a term you may not be familiar with because really it's not been done in a very organized way before. And so Vegan Launch, our business is providing financial organizing for the vegan economy. So let's look a little deeper. What do I mean by financial organizing? And one way to understand that is to look at what more people are familiar with, which is political organizing. And in political organizing, often there's some kind of a lead organization, some kind of a nonprofit typically, and they're building up a membership base and working to get the people in their base, in their community, to vote in a coordinated way that expresses their values. So that's pretty straightforward. But some of the weaknesses of political organizing is that politics, especially in the West, is very ephemeral. And if you look at politics, what you have, in general, we have what I call the sweep of culture. So culture has its long-term trend, and then politics is like this. It's like a very scattered wave along that trend. But one of the problems when we rely on political organizing, especially as we've seen in the US recently, is that long-term gains that can be built up incrementally, year by year and decade by decade, can just be wiped out with an executive order. And whatever side you are on the issue, it's the same set of issues. So the political organizing requires constant engagement, and the continuity and real longevity of these changes is limited. Now, if we look at the way corporations work, they have a much longer term agenda. They're not, they don't just lose their power because of some vote one day. And as a result, if we look at, say, corporations in the United States, the big social organizing corporations like McDonald's, you could say that McDonald's is one of the largest organizing enterprises in the world. They teach people how to eat in the way they believe through their marketing, and then they make money from people doing what they've been taught, and then they've got a positive feedback loop. More money allows them to market more and essentially deeply entrench their value set in the culture. So right now, if we look at the vegan movement has created a market, and all movements create markets because as those values enter the culture, people are willing to pay money to express those values more and more with their dollars. So people often say, vote with your dollars. And what's available right now in the vegan economy is the ability to vote with your dollars for certain products that are vegan in their design and in their intent, products and services that express the vegan ethic. And now those companies that are providing those vegan products, aside from the core staples, rice and potatoes and beans, which have been with us for longer than capitalism, but all of those companies had to be formed, and they needed to have initial capital in order to get off the ground. So if we look at, for example, the recent IPO of Beyond Meat, that company started 10 years ago with their first round of capital. So the recent IPO, we'll call it their latest round of capital. And so whoever provided the funding for Beyond Meat at the very beginning essentially casted a vote for the future economy that now we're seeing 10 years later. And so this is a very powerful notion. And now let's look at vegan money and investments. And our calculations are that vegans hold about $2 trillion of publicly traded stock. And that's quite a large amount of money. You can start a massive number of companies on just 1,000th of that. Remember, 1,000th of 2 trillion is still $2 billion. And that's enough to put seed capital into 10,000 companies at $200,000 a piece. And I just read recently the very first round of capital for Uber was $200,000. That's a very common number to get a company booted up and organized and making some progress before they raise additional capital. So we're talking about vegans having vast amounts of investment capital, and by taking 1,000th of that capital and even less and using it in an organized way, we can actually build the economy, we can redesign the economy and really create a new economy that reflects the vegan ethical value set. And so this is a very vital understanding, and this organizing needs to be done. So when most people think about investing, they think about some stocks they can buy, maybe some real estate or some bonds. If they're a little sophisticated, they might have heard of venture capital funds or maybe angel investing. And there's other kinds of investing called infrastructure investing. When you really start looking at financing, there's a whole range of financial tools. Each one is suited for something unique. And so, for example, when somebody wants to build a road or a dam or some other destructive thing, they're not financing that through a venture capital fund. They're financing that with infrastructure financing and other kinds of advanced financing. And also, if someone wants to start a restaurant, let's say you want to start a vegan restaurant, an angel investor, a venture capital firm is generally going to shy away from that kind of thing, and yet we can see how valuable vegan restaurants are in helping to build the vegan culture in the world. So that just requires a different style of financing, whereas venture capital financing and angels, they're typically looking for what are called unicorns. And so Beyond Meat is an example of a unicorn. That's a company that can go public at a very high valuation of $1 billion or more, that the whole company is, if we took all the stock and added it together, it'd be worth over $1 billion. And so that's a very narrow thread of the overall economy. And this is one of the problems with growing the vegan economy, is that even vegan venture capital funds really are not set up to finance, certainly not to finance all of the vegan companies that are applying to them now for capital. So we're getting a backlog of deals that are not getting funded, but also they're not the right kind of financial model for financing various important aspects of the future vegan economy, especially when it comes to things like infrastructure, restoring the fertility of our soils, redesigning the food supply, protecting rainforests. Those, VC funds have their purpose, which we can all respect and appreciate, but it's just a narrow slice of the whole range of financing. So now you can begin to understand what Vegan Launch is doing. We're taking the vegan value set, looking at where in the economy we can make the most gains, and then helping these, millions and millions of vegan investors take very small, low-risk amounts of their investment assets, and by working together, move them into projects that can totally transform our economy and solve the big challenges that vegans really care about. So I hope you like what I had to say. Certainly if you like this video, click the like button and subscribe. And there's links below if you want to become a member of Vegan Launch and start participating as an investor member and helping organize the future vegan economy.